Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast. Today, we have a very special guest with us. His name is David Ho. David is from Hawthorne, California, and is an owner of Arena Ktown, Arena SF, SIP Boba Lounge, and Academy of DJs. An ex-medical engineer with an unrelenting will to create and inspire, David seeks to create an impact in the entertainment and music industries and give opportunity to young hustlers out there. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That was an awesome introduction. And that introduction was written 2 months ago. And since then, we have two more nightclubs. We've since then opened Commissary OC and Opal in the South Bay, San Jose area. So super excited to announce those two.
Yeah. I mean, dude, you are killing it. I think we said it
Oh,
right
thank
before the
you.
podcast
Thank you.
and we're also really flattered that, we know that you typically don't take interviews, but
Mhm.
you're here on our podcast. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you guys put it on for the Asian community, and that's what we do too. So I couldn't say no.
Of course, man. So let's hop into the first question so we get to know you better.
Yeah.
What was your upbringing like? Where'd you grow up, and what was your like parents' expectations of your
Oh yeah,
future?
that's a good question. So, I grew up in LA, Hawthorne, Inglewood to be exact. I didn't grow up with a community of Asians at all. I had some Asian friends, but my general community was a little bit more like on the urban side, and it was a tough upbringing. I was bullied a lot. I was not accepted a lot. I was shorter than everyone, smaller than everyone. So I grew up with a big chip on my shoulder, and I think that's a real testament to who I became today. I've always felt the need to prove it to the world a little bit. Like, hey, when the going gets hard, know that you weren't accepted before, and you got to prove it to everyone else that you're worth it. So that's a little bit of my upbringing to like boil it down to a nutshell. I grew up in like lower middle class and just not always feeling accepted totally, and just using that as a catalyst to push myself in skills and accolades and things like that.
Yeah, and I could definitely appreciate that, right? And I
Hmm.
always feel like the people who have a chip on their shoulder with lots of things to prove. I don't know why
Hmm.
society always knocks those people down. It's like, oh, you have a chip on your shoulder, blah, blah. But I
Yeah.
feel like those are go-getters, right? And
Yeah.
like you go out and do things because you have nothing to lose
Yep.
and everything
Exactly.
to prove. So
Hmm.
shout out for that.
Thank you so much.
Just wanted to like shout out you as well. And I appreciate you bringing that up and like bullying and all of those stuff.
Hmm.
Like it's important to talk about it, because
Yeah.
not a lot of people would like to talk about it. It's something that a lot of people have experienced in the past, which, actually causes that chip on the shoulder. And I have that too, because it's like
Hmm.
I was bullied in the past for being
Hmm.
small as well.
Hmm.
I'm actually 4'8". So like
Wow.
Brian knows this, like everyone who knows me in person knows this, like I'm very, very petite. So it's like one
Uh-huh.
of those things that
Yeah.
has always been something that had bothered me at a young age. But it's like nowadays, it's like I use that to an advantage. Like I use that to pretty much show people like, I'm stronger than who I used to be
Yeah,
back
you
then.
could take
And
it one or two ways. You
yeah,
can take it as a self like deprivation, like, oh man, I'm never gonna make it, or you can take it
yeah,
the opposite way. It's like, I'm gonna prove it to them. I'll
yeah,
do it.
I
yeah, for
love
sure.
it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, shout out for that. I mean, I'm kind of curious too because you started your career off as an engineer. Now look,
Hmm.
you're like a pretty badass entrepreneur now.
Thank you,
Like
thank you.
obviously you walk down the path where you want to make your parents proud and like
Yeah,
keep them
yeah.
happy. But
Hmm.
after that requirement is done, it's like, okay, I worked a few years. What else can I do, right? And then I want to
Hmm.
hear about that transition,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is an interesting transition. So I became an engineer because I've always been a tinkerer. I've always messed around with things. My dad was a mechanic growing up, so I grew up fixing cars and playing with car parts in my backyard. So I've always known I was a very big tinkerer. But at the same time, I was like very creative. At the same time, like I would do like photography, graphic design, web design, etc. on my free time. So in college, I did both. I did design and I did engineering, and I kind of switched back and forth between majors. And I just ended up thinking to myself, like, what's more stable? Like at the end of the day, what's gonna make me like not like disappoint my parents and just be stable in life? So I chose engineering. I didn't hate it. I actually enjoyed it a lot. And I went down the engineering pathway. First in petroleum engineering and then into biomedical engineering. And I liked it. I learned a lot. I learned about like teamwork and structure of like corporate ladder and like where you should be and how you should talk to people. Um, but for me, it was always like a little bit too slow. Like the money was too slow and the projects were too slow. And you work in, especially in the medical engineering field, you work on the same project for like 3 years, and it's like you change a screw on a part, and it's like, oh man, like, yeah, I mean, I worked pretty hard. I did a lot of tests, but like, did I really affect humankind that much? Probably not. So I always knew I wanted to do something further than engineering, just because it just didn't fulfill the fact of like making a splash on the world for me. So I started Academy of DJs, which is a DJ school. I've always DJed my whole life, and I felt like, hey, might as well give back. And that like unleashed my creative, like, oh man, like I can not only do the logistical side of a business, I can do like the marketing and the hype side, and then I can really change people's lives. And that kind of started me on the itch of like, oh man, I got to do more, right? And Arena actually kind of like serendipitously fell on my lap. So you know how people say, like, what's the phrase? Luck is preparation meets opportunity. That was Arena for me. So I've DJed my whole life, and um, I got picked up by a promotion company when I was 18 years old. So I was DJing for this Asian promotion company called Underworld, and they did all the Hollywood parties in LA. You guys are laughing because maybe you guys know it, right?
We were
Yes,
so familiar with
Underworld.
Underworld.
Oh my
Oh, you guys are
gosh.
familiar with it?
Yeah, I haven't heard that name in
I
so
know.
long. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
wow,
I remember
that's
the
so
logo too
interesting.
with the flames and everything.
That's
Yeah,
why I
yeah.
was
No, it's
laughing.
actually a hand, but yeah. So yeah, it's a red logo. Anyways, I got picked up by Underworld when I was 18 years old, and that's their motto, like college students, college parties, and that was, I really wanted to be a DJ, like a nightclub DJ. So I got picked up and I signed with them, and I was just very loyal. I was a hard worker. I never missed one DJ gig. I never was late. I never did bad. I always prepared for my gigs, and I got very close with the team, and I became a manager. And I've been loyal for them for about 10 years at that point. And then the owner of Underworld, Jackson, he went to do a party at Arena, right? Arena Ktown. And they said, hey, we're gonna close before you do your party. Like we can't make rent. We're so behind on everything. Do you just want to buy it? And then he was like, oh shoot, maybe. And then they talked numbers, et cetera, et cetera. But he had a fundraise. Or not fundraise, but like get investors, blah blah blah, to get the money. And he asked me, and I was like, oh man, that's a big risk. In retrospect, it's like, oh yeah, duh, invest in a nightclub, you're gonna make a lot of money. But it's a huge risk. And me coming from engineering background, like, I'm very risk adverse, and I was like, I don't know, man. I'll do it, but I gotta be a silent partner. Like I'm so busy with engineering and Academy of DJs. I don't know if I can dedicate any more time to running a nightclub. So I invested some money. And I was a silent partner. All I was supposed to do is book DJs because I had the school, and then I saw like their marketing and their website and everything they did, and I was like, man, my name's on this. Like, like I can't. So I just took over, like, pro bono. I was like, guys, I'm sorry, I got to take over. So I took over, and in 2 weeks, I came up with the I Do It for the Ratchets campaign. I did the website, I did the marketing. We changed it to Arena Ktown. It was called Arena Ultra Lounge at one point, and I was just like, dude, we gotta do it this way. This is the cool way. So yeah, I'll credit myself to the I Do It for the Ratchets and the whole campaign and all that, kind of the whole like house party hip hop vibe was like my thing at the time. I was like, oh, we gotta do it like this. So yeah, that's how Arena came to be. And then push came to shove, and this and that. The money came in, and it was like, oh my god, I can't believe we could make that much money selling alcohol and bottle service, and everyone loves us. Like we did not expect that at all. The original plan for Arena was to buy it, throw a few parties, and flip the business. Like, hey, in a year we'll just sell it to somebody else and just make our money back, right? And then we just made so much money in the first few months. We were like, there's no way we're selling this thing. So yeah, that's kind of like the inception story of it.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy. I did not know any of this. And I
Yeah,
didn't know,
most
like,
people don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so it seems like how they were marketing it, like you weren't happy with the way they, and especially because your name was attached to
Yeah.
it already. So
Yeah.
at that point, you were like, okay, if my name's gonna be on this, I want it to be this way, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's like the crazy thing is like it blew up so big, and you come from an engineering background,
Mhm.
so it's not like you had a lot of marketing background either. I'm
Mhm.
sure you like picked up on some marketing from
Mhm.
Academy of DJs,
Yeah.
but you just like blew it out of the water, and you could like read the room on like what these people wanted and
Mhm.
like what the scene was like, right?
Yes.
And
It
the
was a time.
whole I do it for the Ratchets, like everyone was in love with that.
Yeah.
And I feel like people are still in love with that. So I mean, props to you. Like I
Thank you
did
so
not know that
much.
story at all. So
Thank
it's
you
just
so
so
much. Yeah,
amazing.
I have no right now. Actually, my title is I'm the vice president of Arena Nightlife Group, but I'm also the chief marketing officer. So I run the whole marketing team of all 5 nightclubs, every single social media post, every single design, all the websites, everything like that, and I have zero background on it
That's so
whatsoever.
amazing. Another thing is like the ironic thing is you wanted to be a silent partner. David, I feel
Yes.
like you're the face of Arena. So I just think that's so funny.
Yeah, it's very yeah, and yeah, it's totally the opposite of what I wanted. At first, at least, at first I was like, Academy and my engineering job is my priority. Like this is what makes the money. Like this is like what I've done in the last 5 years. And then yeah, I became the face of the company over the last 4 or 5 years, just because uh Jackson, my partner, and my other partners, they're more on like the low key side, and I'm on the like creative like DJ side. So it just I didn't. I was like, hey, I'm gonna be the face. Like it just so happened.
That is, yeah, that's crazy. I haven't heard like the name Jackson and Underworld in so long. Although I have heard it
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
Yeah,
What's funny is you haven't heard of it, but he runs things. He runs a lot of he runs all the operations. He runs
that's
the
crazy.
acquisitions. He runs all the business deals. So he's behind the scenes doing work.
Shout out to Jackson. I think I met him like once, like back in the day, like
Yeah.
10, 12 years ago. I don't want to date myself, but a
He's
long
been
time ago.
yeah, I wouldn't give too much credit to myself either, because it's not easy running this game. It's a lot of business negotiations. It's a lot of like finding the right place. These clubs for sale weren't for sale on the market. It's not like you can go to a website, nightclubsforsale.com. You got to really like know the inner circle of operators and owners and such, and just offer them like, hey, let me buy you out, et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot of knit grit work.
Yeah, it's like it's never easy, and a lot of us don't even know the inside of like what goes on, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing that. But the one thing I really want to like commend you on is your timing.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you guys got Arena at a really good time
Oh,
because
yeah.
there's no K-Town clubs, everything's
Mhm.
dying, right? And you just
Mhm.
got in at the right moment. It's just like it totally erupted.
Yeah.
And I think I said the same thing recently too, a commissary lounge in the
Mhm.
OC. I'm
Yeah.
just like, we're me, man. You were there a couple of months ago. We're like, man, like OC needs a club right now. It's gonna blow
Yeah.
the heck up.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I remember Brian and I were just driving around OC. We're like, man, it's kind of dead in here. It's kind
Yeah.
of dead here. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I've been eyeing OC clubs for the last 2 years. And I swear to you, any OC club that you've heard of ever, I've talked to them about buying their club, and I've almost done it. And there's always one thing. There was always one thing like holding us back. Like the owner either changes their mind, or there is like provision on their licenses that they couldn't do this, and that, and we're like, ah, we can't risk our business. So yeah, this OC club has been a long time coming, and I'm so happy to have it.
Yeah. Shout out, man. That's huge props. And like one more credit to like the S Up Arena Club.
Hmm.
Like you got in also at a very good time.
Perfect time, yeah.
Oh my
We
God.
gotta
Like,
we gotta steal with that one too in the Mission District. Yeah.
yeah, let's talk about that real quick. Like
Yeah.
what goes through your mind with you and your partners when you're about to make an acquisition? Is it
Hmm.
completely timed out or like
No.
is it like all luck where it's like, oh shoot, we got it. Let's open it now.
Yeah, I don't want to. Okay, maybe not luck, but it's it's window of opportunity. Yes, we got Arena K Town, perfect time of like 2018, of like K Town needed a nightclub. Like right now, K Town's flurried with nightclubs. But I low key like think it's because of us. We started the K Town nightclub like resurgence, and then there's so many people that couldn't get into K Town, Arena K Town, that like nightclubs would pop out down the street, and like all these other clubs will pop up with taking our like leftover people. Um, but anyway, yeah. So yes, we do have good timing, but it's not that we planned it. I would love to give myself credit, like, oh yeah, March 2018, let's open a club, and that's gonna be the perfect time ever. Yeah, I mean, yes, it was, but also it's just the opportunities. Nightclubs are not like if y'all was to open a restaurant, yes, like I would time it. Like, hey, like let's time it in the summer so people like go out more, have more money, et cetera, et cetera. But nightclubs is it's so few and far in between that are available. Is just if it's available, buy it. That's it. So in this last few months, we bought like 3 places, and it was just because it's available, and we're like so used to not having an open market like that. So yeah, timing is great. Timing, luck was on our side with that one, but it was available at the right time.
I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that you call out the competition. Call them out, David. Screw it. You're the best one. You're best one right now.
Nah, nah, nah.
And I'm kind of curious too, because I know a lot has happened so recently, right? In like the last like 3-4 years.
Yeah.
How has your life changed? Because we feel like you're still very, very humble, and you haven't let like success really like change you as a person. But I'm kind of curious, like, how has your life personally changed from like obviously from a financial perspective, but like your personal growth and your family and everything?
Yeah. That's an awesome question. So, financially, I was able to quit my job, and the nightclub world is very lucrative. So yeah, I've been able to buy a house. I've been able to buy cars that I like, but generally I keep it very humble. I think it's a huge, I guess, like moral compass of mine to never really let it get to my head. I still, wear the same black shirt I wore when I was broke. I don't really buy expensive things. I don't own a watch. I don't own jewelry. I just try to keep it the same. Like I think it's a slippery slope living up to how much you make, because you'll never be satisfied. So yeah, I keep it humble, but I mean, I still like to buy things like I like, you know what I mean? Like I buy nice cars. I bought myself a Lotus just because I survived the pandemic. But I try to keep it like just one big purchase. That's it. I don't like live a lavish lifestyle or anything like that. Um, Personally wise, I've grown so much these last 4 or 5 years. As I said, as a kid, I had a huge chip on my shoulder, right? Like I was like, I'm gonna prove it to you, and you that I'm gonna be big one day. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna be this hot shot. I'm gonna like be rich. I'm gonna be famous. Blah blah blah. Like I just that chip on my shoulder really drove me to have really high discipline when I was a child. Since then, the discipline has stayed, but I'm not really like I'm gonna prove it to you anymore. I got no one to prove it to besides myself now. But other than that, the first 2 or 3 years of Arena Nightlife Group, I was like 1,000, 1,000,000% dedicated, and that's like every moment of my life. And I feel like still I am that way, but I've turned a corner a little bit in realization that like um, you might die alone if you keep on doing this. And I think it's a tough thing for a lot of entrepreneurs. Like you can't keep relationships, you can't keep friendships sometimes. You don't have time for people that you love, your parents, your family, your siblings. So I definitely turned that corner in the last 2 years or a year, just to consciously realize what you're doing. Like I still work 18 hour days, 16-hour days, but I consciously know it. Like, hey, you're sacrificing some time with your family, or you haven't visited your dad in a while. And at least it's in my conscience now that I do take some time off to further the things that I've put away in the past, or not put away, but like put on the back burner a little bit. So yes, personally, I've grown so much. And even more now that I'm a little bit more mature in my tenure of nightclub ownership.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I definitely agree with you. I think we hustle so hard, and I'm sure during the first couple of years, growing Arena Ktown, you were extremely busy. I'm sure you're still extremely busy, but it's so easy to just be so indulged with just hustling every single day. But, like 10 years later, 5 years later, or whatever, like we look back and we're like, we actually didn't spend enough time with our family, or we didn't spend
Hmm.
enough time with our friends. And I'm glad that you're
Absolutely.
looking back and realizing that now, because that's so important. And
Absolutely.
the matter of fact is like, yes, we might die alone. But we
Yeah.
like none of us want to do that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, I think with a lot of entrepreneurs, there's a lot of like monetary goals of your like, hey, I want to see my bank account at this number. I want to see my net worth at this number. And for me, I definitely had those. And when I hit certain accolades, it was like probably one of my loneliest times of my life. Like I hit certain accolades that I wanted to hit, and I just look at it and I'm just like, oh, was that worth it? Like, and it's just reflections of all the failed relationships, reflections of all the failed friendships, reflections of, you know, not being there for my parents enough, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, as maybe advice to young entrepreneurs, it's a delicate balance.
Yeah, and that statement really hit home for me a lot
Mm-hmm.
because I felt the same way, right? And I feel like Asian Hustle Network is because I felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
Before I was doing a lot of real estate and flipping houses and making pretty good amount of money and doing
Mm-hmm.
over like 20 projects, but like
Nice.
at the end of the day, it's like you realize that there's other things to life than just making money, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the loneliness that you speak, it's like people don't usually recognize that because when you
Mm-hmm.
look at you on social media, you're having the best life ever, right? Every
Yeah.
single picture is like a key in front of a building,
Yeah.
or like nice cars, but like deep inside, like we all go through our own struggles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate you speaking up about that.
It's real. And I think everyone that I know who's kind of on the same like level as I am or doing the same kind of things all feel the same. It's like,
Yeah,
damn, man, we got to really be there for each other more.
100%.
Yeah.
Maggie, I know you have a question.
I do. Okay. So I want to take it back a little bit just when you were starting to find a location for Arena SF.
Hmm.
I saw one of your reels and it was such a good video because you were
Oh.
talking about how what like the journey was like kind of
Hmm.
building out Arena
Yeah.
SF.
Hmm.
And when you were hiring a construction agency or a construction company, I saw that they would only speak Cantonese and
Yeah.
there's like no way to communicate with
Yeah.
them.
Zero
Can
way
you
at all.
can you talk about just like the nuances of just like communicating and working with so many different partners, not only the construction company, but like all these different partners to put together a nightclub
Okay.
and just
Yeah.
like the budget aspect of it and like how difficult it was? Because I saw that it only took you 4 weeks.
Four
And I'm
weeks.
sure
Four
those
weeks.
4 weeks were like grueling for you.
Oh
And
yeah.
you were just like falling asleep at the club and falling
Hmm.
asleep in the office.
Hmm.
But to me, like that is extremely fast. Like four
Yeah.
weeks to build a nightclub. That
Yeah.
like I commend you for that.
You
But I
make it
want to
look
know
so
like
easy.
you make it look so
Yeah. I
easy.
just hammer some things and paint some things. You got a nightclub.
Yeah. And in the
Uh,
video, you're like, you would like rent a scissor lift by yourself and you would
mhm.
just like install the lights by yourself. And
Yeah.
that's just so amazing. I want to know like the
Thank
whole
you.
process of that and just like how you kind of dealt with the whole process.
Sure. Um, uh, I think my engineering background has a lot to do with me having to do things sometimes. Like sometimes I have to do it. Like I have to like put this light on, or like I just don't trust other people, or slash, I just want to learn. So yes, to your first question, uh, most general contractors we hired on, number one, would have taken too long, and number two, were like 5 times our budget. So we had to hire like local Cantonese Chinese dudes who like were like straight up from Chinatown. Like I didn't understand a word they said. I'm Vietnamese myself. Um, there was one of the dudes who spoke like broken English, so like he was the project manager, and I like talk to him and he talked to his dudes. But sometimes I would just be with his dudes and I'd be like, this, there, like I would like do a lot of hand signs, like black paint, and they would just like nod. I'm like, oh man, they didn't get it. And I would just have to watch them like do it. I'm like, "Ah, no, no, that there. So like I was like the second project manager. I pretty much lived there. Um, Secondly, shout out to my crew back in the day in Viscus. We used to do like lighting and sound and DJing for like weddings, corporate events, et cetera, et cetera. And I learned a lot of the ropes of the game of like lighting design, lighting programming, and just general like production from them. So when it came down to either hiring a production company, which would cost like honestly like $500,000 to do a nightclub, or to do it myself and just buy the lights and program it and wire the club myself, it was an easy choice for me to just do it myself. And every single nightclub that we own, I've done the lighting and sound myself. I wired the whole
Wow.
venue, electricity, DMX, XLR, programmed the lights, et cetera, et cetera. Even at commissary. Yeah.
That is so amazing. I
Hmm.
mean, oh my gosh, yeah. You should like pat yourself on the back for that because I feel like a lot of people would just like hire general contractors and just let them do whatever,
Hmm.
or like just wait for them to finish it, which will most likely take a long time.
Yes.
But you like just took it upon yourself and especially because it's just like something that you didn't mind doing either,
I love doing it.
Yeah.
It's like it's a passion of mine to build. Like I've as an engineer, like you love working with your hands. So, yeah, I love doing it. I saved a lot of money doing it, and I did it faster than anybody else. So it's all wins in my book.
We need a documentary on your life and all everything that you are doing and still doing, right? And it's like sounds
Yeah.
crazy to hear.
Yeah, I'm really bad at documenting things because like I just do it. Like if I want to do it, I do it. I don't think about like recording it first or like hiring a videographer. So there's a lot of things that are undocumented. I have a lot of sketch things that I've done, like hanging on the ceiling, like mounting a light and shit. Yeah, a lot
Oh
of
my
shit, a lot of
god.
sketchy stuff I've done.
It's not sketchy, it's just kind of adventurous, right?
Yeah, adventurous is the right word. Yeah. And for me, it's like another level of appreciation when like you see a full nightclub and people partying and drinking, having a lot of fun, and you just look up and you're like, damn, like I definitely like was part of this. Like I put that up there, or like I programmed that thing. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, I love that. And my biggest takeaway from everything you told us so far is that every single experience in your life, no matter how small it is, like becoming an entrepreneur, you'll draw on these random experiences and piece
Yeah.
it all together.
Yep. 100%. You can't graduate college and just be like, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. You could maybe in certain fields, but at least from what I've known and what I've experienced, it's like literally the accumulation of so many life experiences boiling down to these points for me to be able to do all this. So I don't regret going into engineering. I don't regret DJing at Hollywood nightclubs when I was 18 years old. I don't regret any of this because it was really, made me who I am today.
Yeah, it also prepared you to become the person you are today too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know like your success, like we're so happy for you, but we
Thank
want to
you.
talk about the times where I know you mentioned earlier too, the times where you felt a little bit sad, a little bit broken, right? And
Yeah.
especially I want to narrow it down to like the pandemic,
Yeah, that
right?
was a
When the
tough time.
pandemic hit, it was like we're like,
Yeah.
holy moly, like you guys immediately like you start improvising immediately. You're like, we gotta sell boba, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yes.
I want to
Oh
hear
my
about like
gosh.
start to finish, man. Like
Oh my
what was
God.
going on?
Oh my gosh. So March 13th, 2020. I remember the date exactly. That's when we closed the club, both clubs. And at first I was like, oh, it's 2 weeks. This is gonna be great. I'm gonna get a vacation finally. Like I was like, thank God I needed a break. I was so stressed and tired because I just remodeled Arena Ktown. So we remodeled Arena Ktown to Arena Ktown 2.0, right? And it was a 2-week project. I pretty much did everything. I was so damn tired. We ran the club for about like a month, and then the pandemic hit, and I was like, ah, man. Well, at least I get a little break, right? And I thought it was gonna last for 2 weeks. But the news came in, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is actually a really big deal. Um, and we started kind of panicking. Like, our on our heads at the time we had about like $50,000 worth of rent on every month on our heads. And our landlords weren't cutting us any breaks. They were just like, hey, you signed this lease, you owe us this money. And, we were like, dude, we signed the lease for the opportunity to do business. We don't even have the opportunity to do business right now. Like, why do we pay full rent? So we were like very, man, dude, what are we gonna do? And during the time the ABC relinquished uh, alcohol to go, like you couldn't sell alcohol to go before, but now you can because whatever. And we're like, dude, no one's gonna buy an AMF to go. No one's gonna buy a shot of Jameson to go. So we, I, I was tasked on the idea to like come up with something. My first idea was like, let's sell Hainan chicken because people are hungry around K-Town and SF, and maybe, that sounds good, And like I was in my kitchen cooking Hainan chicken, like there's no way we're doing this shit. This is just hard as fuck. Then my second idea was like, all right, let's do like people are doing like a lot of parties, like house parties and like parties within a households. Let's sell like party packs, like let's sell like 2 bottles of alcohol, like a twister game together, and then I was like, dude, no one's gonna buy that, man. You could just go to Ralph's and buy that shit. So I was like, oh man, what are we gonna do? And then we just we just came up with alcoholic boba. We're like, you know what? People will not take the time to brew tea at home and then do all this like sweetener stuff. And if you add alcohol to it, which boba shops can't do because they don't have the alcohol license, we could have a niche market. Um, so I went in the lab. I literally knew nothing about making boba. I knew nothing about tea. I knew nothing about anything. So I was just YouTube asking people. I was like cooking boba in my kitchen for a week, and we came up with like 5, 6 flavors. And then I had some friends at Postmates. Shout out Ben Trin. At the time, I was like, Ben, get me on Postmates. Like I'm gonna do alcoholic boba to go. Uh, so we did Postmates, we did pickup, and it kind of blew up at first. I was like, dude, we got so many orders. Like we were making like a couple $1,000s a day on boba. We're like, dude, this is crazy. And I was working myself to the bone. I was like cooking, I was like making my recipe for like popcorn chicken. People who know me in that time, I could not cook at all. Like I was so bad at cooking, but like I had to do this. So I came up with a recipe for everything. I learned like from A to Z how to make boba, like your steep times, your times in the honey, like what the texture should be like, the sweetness, how that should be, how much alcohol you should add to each cup, like learning how to seal it. Like I learned everything in like 2 weeks, and then we just launched and we went.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
crazy. Now look at you. You're a mixologist, you're a master chef.
yeah.
All of
Now
these
now I
things.
can yeah, I know boba in and out now for sure. Um, and yeah, so going back to the original question, yeah, pandemic was rough, super rough. And that's when I had a lot of revelation of like, man, like people don't really like. Do people actually like me, or do people just care that I can get them in the club? You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, my phone goes from like blowing up 200 messages every Friday, Saturday night to like nobody, it's like, damn, like who's the real ones here, so pandemic was tough mentally because of that. Like I had to stark realizations of the real friends and the club friends. Then I had, the business pressure of making it. And the end of the pandemic was the hardest for me, because San Francisco was able to open before LA, as a restaurant. So we opened up Arena SF as a restaurant. Then we had to come up with food. Like I'm never like, I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to like, I don't know like what to serve as a restaurant. So we came up with like Korean fried chicken. We had to come up with a recipe for that. We had the boba, we had fries, we had like lumpia, we had all these like Asian inspired foods at the club or at the club. And there was so much red tape. We would have health inspectors come in every night. No one could be standing, right? And it's a nightclub. People are gonna stand. So no one could be standing. No one can have their mask off if they're not actively eating or drinking. No one can dance whatsoever. Uh, no one can come with a party outside their household. So you had to check addresses, and it was just so much red tape, and it was so stressful for me because we had all this rent on our head. I was literally outside on Mission Street, like begging people to eat my French fries. Like I felt like at the lowest point of my life. I was just like, I can't believe I had the hottest clubs just a year ago, and now I'm begging people to eat French fries on the street. Like I was, I'm glad it happened because my life until then was like a fairy tale entrepreneur life. Like I got into it, I made a lot of money, and it was just like, you know, you know, people loving you all of a sudden, and like, everyone's like, what's Arena? Who's Do? Blah blah blah. Like everyone knows you all of a sudden. To like me on the street asking for like a $5 French fry order. Like so. I definitely needed that realization that business is not always handed to you. So it was tough.
Yeah, that it's the most humbling
Oh
experiences
yeah,
that
it
really
was.
ground you out.
It was.
In retrospect, it gives you a better view of the world, who your friends are,
Yeah.
and like honestly, like success is rented every day, right? It's
Hmm.
not always guaranteed, and it helps you think bigger term, like how can I build more
100%.
sustainable business,
Yeah,
right? That this
100%.
never happens again ever.
Yes. Yeah, or be prepared for it to happen again, right? Get your finances right so you can survive another pandemic, or never take on more than you can chew, because it could leave one day. Your hype can leave one day. Someone can get injured at your club, and you could shut down. Like so. We've had a lot of. Luckily, we haven't had any troubles besides the pandemic, but we've definitely have opened our eyes up more to like, it's not all glitter and gold out here.
Yeah, and just wanted to like thank you for sharing that with us, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that was such like a hard time for you, and
That's deep.
it was, yeah, it's really
That
deep.
was
And
really deep.
a lot of people, when they talk about the pandemic and their business, they talk about the financial implications, but
Hmm.
for you, you went a little bit deeper and talked about like, who are my real friends? Like, I used to
Yeah.
get hit up every single day, and now it's like no one's hitting me up, and
Hmm.
I bet you never thought you would be running a restaurant, right? So it's like
Yeah.
you had to
Yeah.
adapt, and that's
Yep.
exactly what you did.
Yeah. Survive and adapt was the name of the game in 2020 and 2021. It was tough, very tough.
Yeah, and I can imagine what kind of strain that put on your team and with your partners,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
I know partnerships are not easy, and a lot of people
Hmm.
really underestimate that because I'm working with
Yeah.
my friend. What can go wrong, right? So like
Yeah.
partnerships almost like dating the other person. It's like you have to work
Yeah, I think it's
together.
more than dating, honestly. Um, yeah, my piece of advice is don't go into a partnership with your close friend because it's you're gonna strain it for sure.
Yeah,
And also a piece of advice is go into a partnership with someone that like is good at something that you're not good at. Because if it's like two people good at the same thing, it's gonna be butting heads. Like you need to be like, hey, you're really good at this, you handle that. You're really good at this, just handle that side. So, definitely have like conversations about, hey, like I don't know about, this price or whatever it is, but that's not my world because, I will stick to the creative and marketing side, and my partners will stick to the logistics and operations side. And we generally don't like to cross paths or like cross into each other's fields too much, just because then you get a little like animosity. You know what I mean? So partnerships are very tricky, and I've luckily got into partnerships where my partners do compliment me a lot.
that's great. That's great to hear, especially during hardships, right? That's when
Hmm.
emotions are high, stress is really high. You got to make
Definitely.
rent, you got to make payroll, and all these other expenses, and it's
It's
like,
tough. Yeah.
were there times where you're like, man, like this is not gonna work, like
Oh yeah.
screw it?
Yeah. I did. Yes, actually, yeah. Half the pandemic was like I've already accepted my fate of uh, not being a nightclub owner anymore. Because there was talks of like, hey, this might never end, or like, hey, nightclubs may never come back, because you know this might be a forever thing. And I kind of was like, you know what, I might lose everything I worked for. And I was okay with that. Um, what was the original question again? I'm sorry.
No. I was wondering if there's like times where your conversations with your partners is
Oh
like very
yes.
heated.
Yes, definitely. Dude, we got into it so many times. There's points where I was like, dude, I don't know if I can do this. Like I'm worth so much more, bro. I can literally leave and open up my own shit and be successful. And but at the end of the day, you have to be loyal. Like we all did this together, and we have to be loyal together, and we have to stick it through. But yeah, there's definitely been times where we've gotten at each other's throats.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing the non-rosy things.
Yeah, there's
Right.
a lot of it.
Yeah. And
A lot
it's
of it.
like, when you're in entrepreneurship, you're dealing with so much uncertainty. And most of the time it's like you feel like you're falling off a cliff while trying to build a house at the same time. While
Yeah.
arguing at your partner. You're like, why is this not working?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But we have a very healthy relationship. And at the end of the day, it's because we're very good at what we do, and what we do is the opposite. So we like to just stay in our lanes and just work hard.
Yeah, I love that a lot for sure. So Maggie and I have supported your businesses a lot.
Awesome.
Like we go every time we go
I'm
arena, we
sorry.
always get tables.
I'm sorry. I'm sad I never like formally met you when you guys were there.
No worries. We
But
see you on stage though. You're just too
yeah.
far. Like you're not gonna reach this guy.
Oh man.
But the
You
one
have to
thing,
like pass by all the girls to get to David.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the one thing we did notice about like every time we came out to Arena, the experience is always really good, right?
Awesome.
And we talked to like the bottle girls, and like we feel like the culture that you built is very, very healthy, and everyone seems very like delighted that they're working for you, right?
Yeah.
So, what advice would you have for like people building a team, building a
Mm.
culture, especially in the face of uncertainty, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, is David going to fire me? Is the pandemic? A lot of you probably make more money off government funding,
EDD. Yeah.
EDD.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One thing that I think I can't take credit for is the Asian community is so close and tight knit, and we share a bond through a lot of the same struggles and a lot of the same idealisms. So like having a staff of like a lot of Asians already sets a precedence for me. And we already go into work with implication of like respect already. And all you got to do, at least for me, all I needed to do was show up and like just be nice. Be a nice owner. Don't be an asshole. Yeah, I've definitely had times where like I've yelled at people, but you know, I've always taken my like bottle girls out like for dinner. I've always like you know always tipped them, always made sure that they felt like appreciated, and they always did. They built the culture themselves. I couldn't take all the credit to myself because a lot of especially Arena Ktown, it was the very first club we opened, and we honestly didn't know what we were doing. So a lot of it was like, hey, oh sorry, my dog barking. A lot of it was like, hey, we don't know what we're doing. Can you guys try to figure it out? Let us know what works the best. So a lot of what Arena K-Town staff was, they felt like they owned it too, because they like figured it out with us. So yeah,
I love it. That's a very healthy culture, right? Because you
thank
have
you.
a team there with more experience. Instead of telling them smart people and capable people what to do, you have them sort of just teach you, and you guys all learning together. So I
Mhm.
really, really like the fact that you appreciate your team.
Oh, definitely, 100%.
It's definitely like
Mhm.
a newer mentality that we all have, right? Where
Hmm.
it's like the old mentality, our parents like treat your employees like shit, but it doesn't really flow with the newer
Yes,
generation.
yes, but also there's my dog right there.
Oh, so cute.
Say hi,
The way
Ollie.
he walks. Oh,
Uh,
oh, so
this is Ollie,
cute. Hi,
my
Ollie.
best friend.
No, but I totally agree. I think like the Asian aspect of it too. Like you already go into the office knowing like everyone kind of has like this
Hmm.
mutual understanding because everyone
Yes,
like has similar cultures.
yes.
So that's a really important piece to it.
Yes, like respect is so ingrained in our culture growing up, that like when you go into the workplace, it's already there. So all you need to do is set the rules and make sure they follow it, and you'll make a nice culture for yourself.
I like that for sure. And David, as we're nearing the end of the podcast, I'm kind of
Hmm.
curious, like what is next for the Arena Nightlife group, right? And I don't know why I keep drawing parallels to Zook group in
Oh
Las
yeah,
Vegas,
because
right?
they're
Because
Asian known too.
yeah, I feel like your stories are like very similar. Like
Hmm.
Andrew's
Yeah,
story.
shout out Will from Zook. Good friend of ours. He used to manage Dre's. Now he's at Zook. He
We know
always takes.
Will.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
you
know
know Will.
Will.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we know Will.
the
Oh,
one with long
awesome.
hair.
Yeah,
Shout out to
awesome. Oh,
Will.
it's such a small world. Yeah, so yeah, what's next for Arena? We've acquired a lot of clubs in the last year. And we are neck deep in work, and good people and good managers are hard to find. So right now in the interim 6 to 8 months, um, we're just working on training our managers and making sure our venues logistically, operationally, have the right um, operations, I guess, lack of a better word. Um, Culture, I think, is great. Yeah, so right now it's just finding the right workers, finding the right managers, training the managers, making sure we have the right logistics in all of our clubs in the next 6 to 8 months. In the next like 5 years, um, I think we might slow down in the acquisition, because I think we're starting to fuel the. It's not just 2 times the work having 2 clubs. It's not just 5 times the work. It's like 10 times the work. because every city is different. Every city has its own culture, so you got to adapt to that. You got to be local. You got to understand the local crowd. You got to understand like local mandates, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a lot more work. You can't just copy paste a nightclub. So right now with five, we're pretty like, okay, let's just work this out. So we probably won't be acquiring any more nightclubs in the next 2-3 years. Hopefully. I mean, not hopefully, but we might do one or two. We want Our end goal is to open a club in Vegas. So to acquire enough capital to be a real big player, like not just like your local K-Town club or your local San Francisco club. We want to be like a big contender in the huge nightclubs, because that's where you make like the stupid money. But we got to get there first. We're not going to jump the gun. And for me personally, I would like to retire by like 40. I've already set that in my mind, like 40, 45. I just want to be done with this nightlife industry, be done with the entertainment industry, because it's taxing. It's a lot of work, and just work on like passion projects for me, just things that make me happy, things that uplift my community, and just live the life I didn't live in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing that. That's awesome, man. And it's funny because if you didn't say Vegas, I'd be like, David, like we see you in Vegas one day. Like come
We
out to
were
Vegas.
literally just talking about that. Brian and I were like, David needs to come out to Vegas and open a
Yeah.
nightclub here.
Yeah, I'm actually going to Vegas next week for a nightclub convention. Funny enough, Vegas hosts like a nightclub convention for like all nightclub owner operators. We'll see if I learn anything there about Vegas nightclubs.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that you guys will get to your goal,
I hope so.
right? And we do have one final question, David.
Yeah.
And that question is, you know, earlier how you mentioned that you get like 200 text messages on a daily basis. Throughout this entire podcast, I don't know if you guys heard it, but we heard the thing like so many times.
Yeah,
like,
my things, I silenced everything and somehow they're still going through.
Yeah. And we really emphasize the importance of taking care of yourself, setting boundaries and mental health at the end of the podcast, right?
Definitely.
How do you shut things off whenever things get too overwhelming, or you need to like be like, okay, this is my time, no longer work time? Like, do you have any advice for entrepreneurs in that grind and hustle that can't shut it off?
It's a great question, because I need to reflect on myself with that too. Personally, I think for me, to backtrack on that question a little bit, a lot of people often ask, how do you find your passion? Like, how do you know you're passionate about something? Like, I don't want to work for this because I'm not passionate about it. And I've always been an advocate of saying, passion is not about what you want to do. Passion is about like your intent. Like, you could do anything, but and be passionate about it. You just got to believe that you're passionate about it, right? And I think it's very cringe for me when people say like, "Oh, I quit this because I wasn't passionate about it." Sure, I would quit things because it's not a priority for me. But I'm always passionate in everything I do, whether it's engineering, whether it's DJing, whether it's club ownership. I'm always passionate in everything I do, and I say that to say this. I think, at least for me, like this whole mental health thing and learning to shut things off, yes, it's important. But for me, the same way that I'm just passionate in everything I do, I don't let that mental health, or I don't let that get to me. So I never shut it off, unfortunately. So like my advice, I don't know, because I think I don't ever shut off. But not in a bad way. Like I don't ever feel burnt out. I never feel this is too much, I'm gonna like explode. Because I've always, my mentality is this is what you love to do and this is what you signed up for. So just do it. So yeah, mental burnout, definitely a real thing. I like to my way of circumventing it is in my head. Like, hey, this is what you're doing. This is what you signed up to do. Just do it. This is, there's worse out there. There's people who are struggling, not in your position. So just do it. And I don't let myself get burnt out that way. Other people might need to take breaks or take a vacation or, take a meditation every day, et cetera, et cetera. But I just personally don't do any of that.
That's really good advice. I mean, you said like you don't have an advice, but I feel like that was already an advice in itself.
Yeah,
But
thank you.
Because it never feels like work.
It never
yeah,
feels like work.
yeah,
It's just what I do. This
yeah,
is it's just I signed up for this. I'm a leader of my community. I need to do it. So
yeah.
I never let it get to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. Like some people try to find that passionate thing that they're passionate about for the rest of their life. And if you keep thinking that way, it's possible that you may never find that passionate thing,
Yeah,
right?
I think you honestly won't. Just like
Yeah,
how if you always live to how much money you'll make, you'll never be satisfied about how much money you make,
right.
right? Same thing with passion. I feel like if you're always looking for the next thing you're more passionate about, you won't. I don't think you'll find it.
Yeah.
It's inside you,
Yeah,
your mentality.
absolutely. Thanks so much for that advice, David.
Of course.
So, our last question is where can our listeners find out more about you and all of your nightclubs online?
Oh yeah, sure. My personal Instagram is dho creates, dho creates. The nightclubs. Let's start with Arena Ktown. arenaktown.com, IG Arena Ktown. Then you have Arena SF. Similarly, arenasf.com or at Arena SF on Instagram. We have our newest nightclub, Commissary. Uh, uh, it's at Commissary Lounge, but the website is at thecommissarylounge.com. Um, we have Opal, which is our new South Bay San Jose nightclub that we're soft opening this weekend, actually. Um, Website is opaleventcenter.com, but we might change that. Instagram is Opal Social Club. And then we're opening SIP, which we're super excited about in about a month and a half. Um, and that is our spin-off alcoholic boba bar. Like our alcoholic boba did so well at the nightclubs that we wanted to do a spin-off, smaller bar, more sophisticated, more grown, just to do craft alcoholic boba. And I'm super excited for that one. Instagram is Sip Boba Lounge. Website's sipbobalounge.com.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to check out SIP
That's
and
quite the
Opal.
list.
I know that is quite
Yeah,
the list.
yeah. I get tired of just saying it all.
You're like, what are they gonna?
Yeah, like what are all the websites?
We're gonna have you come back in like the next 10 years and be like, all right, David, here's a 20-minute segment of everything you created in the last 10 years.
Oh man. Oh, sorry, I forgot to shout out Academy of DJs. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Academy of DJs, my DJ school. It's in Orange County. Academy DJs, academyofdjs.com or Instagram at Academy of DJs. We do one season every 6 months, and over 200 people apply every season, and we only accept about like 10. So the acceptance rate is lower than Harvard, and we really groomed these people to be all-star DJs. And it's like if a military boot camp and a fraternity had a baby, that's Academy of DJs. Uh, so yeah, that's my school.
Amazing. We're gonna leave all of that in the show notes. David, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. It
Of
was
course.
so amazing hearing your
Thank
story.
you.
Thank you, David.
Yes,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you for taking the time to interview me.
Of course.